Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Game Nexus. It's Dwayne here, and it's been a long time since I've put my face in front of the camera. So today I thought we'd talk about something special, something worthwhile to get me back on the YouTube bandwagon, talking to my viewers about exactly what I'm thinking. So today we're going to be talking about the just recently announced from Wizards of the Coast that Dungeons & Dragons will be getting a new edition in the year 2024. More appropriately, a new evolution, or the next evolution of the game in 2024. This sort of fits in with the given timeline as far as how often we get new editions of Dungeons & Dragons. If you look back in years past, dating all the way back to the original Dungeons & Dragons, every decade you tend to get a new Dungeons & Dragons. If I'm not mistaken, I think 3rd edition and 3.5 wasn't quite a whole decade, and I'm not too sure if 4th edition actually waited that long either. But I do know that if you're looking at 2012 as sort of the launch of D&D 5th edition, it basically makes sense, give or take a couple of years for us to get a new edition. So I thought I would give you my opinion on that news and what my thoughts are exactly about the upcoming new edition. As to whether or not we actually really need a new edition or not. Unlike a lot of enthusiasts, I actually don't really care about new editions of the game coming out. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons since I was 12 years old, and I've grown up throughout the years of all the various editions, but I still consider all of the editions when I go to play D&D. I don't default to the newest edition. Like a lot of players, sometimes they have their favorite versions of the rules. So having said that, when new editions or new supplements or new rules get announced, it doesn't impact us as greatly. Now, I am curious, so don't consider this a write-off of this new edition in any way. I'm very curious to see how they will iterate over the 5th edition rules, which I'm a latecomer to 5th edition. I was involved in the original sort of playtesting of D&D Next, as they called it at the time, but which would become 5th edition. When the game launched proper, I actually didn't jump into it. In fact, I actually stayed away from that game for many years. I just wasn't playing Dungeons & Dragons. So for me, I've only been playing D&D 5th edition probably for about 5 years now, or less. So for me, D&D 5th edition is still fairly new, in my mind anyway. And I think for most of the players that I play with, they're of the same mind. D&D hasn't really hit critical or mass audience, and probably for the past few years now. And, you can attribute that to things like Critical Role, Stranger Things. The word D&D is just now starting to become in sort of the lexicon of people's thoughts when it comes to tabletop gaming. So what does that mean to players who are, like myself, just getting into 5th edition, knowing that in 3 years, there will be a new edition of the game? Well, for the most part, you're not going to have to worry so much about all the material and all the stuff you've already bought. D&D isn't so much a new version of the game, but more of an expansion each time a new version comes out. So it doesn't make previous versions of the game obsolete. It doesn't mean you can't keep playing the same old D&D that you love. It just means that there's going to be a wealth of new product coming that are going to be custom tailored to the new rules per se. And of course, let's just not forget that with those new rules are going to come lots of more content. We're possibly going to get virtual tabletops eventually. Ever since 4th edition, they've been promising that. So that could be a bundle with the D&D 6th edition. That could be a reason why you might want to jump forward. As far as physical items that you might have invested in, so for me, I'm a very big miniature gamer. I build my own scenery. I paint my own figures. That goes without saying that none of that's going to be redundant. So you're obviously all your materials that you currently play with are still going to be there, and you're still going to be able to use them regardless of the edition that you use. So my thought is, while welcoming it is to have a new edition of the game announced and potentially have some new art and new ways of looking at the game, I don't think it's as a big of an announcement as they are making it out to be. I think for the most part, Dungeons & Dragons players are going to continue on doing what they do, which is playing D&D. I think the new edition of the game will serve to take a lot of the expansion products that 5th edition was introducing as separate books or separate expansions and probably compile them into the new game. So we might end up with a core rulebook that has more races, taking from all the different supplements that we've gotten. We might have more robust core books that encompass a lot of rule changes and errata and stuff like that. But as far as the actual overall hobby goes of Dungeons and Dragons, I think people are just going to continue on doing what they do, which is playing D&D, loving the game, and sharing it with others. So while I am looking forward to new artwork, new worlds, new exciting stories to tell, I think for the most part I'm going to continue playing Dungeons and Dragons regardless of whether or not they have a new edition of the game or not. So that's my take on the new announcement that we just had on the new edition coming out. Like I said, it's been a long time since I put my face in front of the camera for my YouTube audience, so appreciate you guys clicking on the video and watching it. Make sure you subscribe as well as check off notifications so that you can get updated as to new content that I've got coming out. And always take care.